Friends, wake up and pay attention. Fed Chair Jerome Powell stands in Washington and announces that the federal funds rate is staying put at 3.5% to 3.75%. He even deletes the warning about downside risks to employment, telling the global media that economic activity is expanding at a solid pace. But almost at that exact same moment, Amazon, the second largest private employer in the U.S., sent out cold-blooded layoff notices to its core departments, cutting another 16,000 white-collar workers. Please understand the destructive power of these numbers. Add in the 14,000 cut last October, and Amazon has purged nearly 30,000 jobs in just 3 short months. And these aren't warehouse movers. These are us cloud engineers making 6 figures, retail managers, and core HR staff. This is the market's biggest paradox right now, the peace and quiet seen by the central bank versus the amputation for survival seen by Silicon Valley are happening in the same parallel universe. If you trust the Fed, you'd think the job market is rock solid, maybe even overheating. But if you look at Amazon, you'll see a white-collar recession targeting the middle-class elite has already fully exploded. The root of this massive temperature difference lies in a fatal mismatch of statistics. The Fed is driving by looking in the rearview mirror at the overall unemployment rate, where plenty of low-end service jobs are hiring, masking the collapse at the top. Capital markets, however, are looking through the windshield at a structural breakdown. Tech giants, led by Amazon, are using eliminating bureaucracy as a cover for a massive blood transfusion centered on AI replacement. Amazon CEO Andy Jassy was incredibly blunt. We will need fewer people to do the work being done today. This isn't just Amazon, Meta, Pinterest, no one is spared, even ASML, sitting at the very top of the semiconductor crown, is cutting management roles. The underlying logic of Silicon Valley has undergone a paradigm shift from hiring for growth over the last decade to trimming for efficiency in 2026. In this moment, Powell's data models are broken. The stability he claims is a mirage built on blue-collar jobs. While that Amazon layoff letter affecting 30,000 people represents the real tectonic shift happening in the American economy. If that January 28th notice was a thunderclap, then stretching out the timeline reveals the full picture. This isn't a defensive battle against an economic cycle. It is a carefully planned species elimination targeting the white-collar class. In the past, layoffs hit the edges or the warehouse floor. This time, the butcher knife is falling precisely on the company's main arteries. Leaked emails show the hardest hit areas are US, core retail management, and the HR department codenamed PXD. Note the absurdity here, US is Amazon's profit engine, contributing the vast majority of operating income and just hitting its strongest growth record since 2022. You don't fire people in a department that is printing money unless their work logic has been rewritten by something more efficient. This brings us to the mysterious internal code name Project Dawn. For 30,000 middle-class workers, this dawn is their darkest hour. Officially, it's about being agile like a startup. But strip away the pure talk, look at the financials, and you see a cold, cruel capital substitution formula. While firing people, Amazon CFO Brian Olszewski dropped a bombshell number. Amazon raised its full-year capital expenditure guidance to $125 billion. This is a naked transfer of resources. On one side, 30,000 high-paid humans are kicked out to save billions in payroll. On the other side, $125 billion in cold hard cash is being frantically dumped into NVIDIA GPUs, data centers, and power grids. This isn't hibernation, it's swapping the cage for a new bird. Andy Jassy already showed his hand in a memo, saying straight up that as they roll out more generative AI and agent systems, they need fewer humans. That sentence is worth its weight in gold. It reveals the irreversible structural replacement happening in the valley. We used to need armies of engineers, operations staff, and HR teams that constituted the white-collar job market. Now, AI agents are taking over writing code, handling complex B2B support, managing data centers. The old equation of business growth equals hire more people is dead in 2026. The new, brutal formula is business growth equals buy more compute plus fire more middlemen. That is why those revenue can jump 20% while they still cut staff. In the arms race, carbon-based employees are too expensive, while silicon-based compute offers exponential returns. Don't think this is just Amazon. It's a terrifying resonance across the industry. The same week Amazon cut jobs, Meta was ruthlessly restructuring Reality Labs to pivot from the metaverse to AI wearables. Pinterest cut 15% to fund AI investments. Capital is now rewarding efficiency, not scale. Those project management skills and coordination abilities you were so proud of. To an AI, they just look like bureaucracy and friction. Amazon's 30,000 pink slips are an efficiency manifesto to Wall Street, declaring they are dumping the baggage of the old era to fight for the throne of the new one, for shareholders. It's a catalyst for stock gains, for the millions of middle-class families dependent on the tech ecosystem. It is a silent balance sheet recession. These fired engineers and managers are the backbone of U.S. consumption, paying high mortgages, private school tuition, and buying premium goods. When their income hits zero and the severance runs out, the shockwave will hit the whole economy. Yet, incredibly, this pressure hasn't reached the decision-makers in Washington, in Powell's view. This micro-level collapse is smoothed out by macro averages. He is still dreaming of a steady economy based on lagging data powdered over by low-end service jobs. On the very day Amazon fired 16,000 people in Seattle, the Fed in D.C. signaled steady expansion. They even removed the language about employment downside risks. This is a huge macro paradox. Why is the second largest employer doing a historic structural purge while the central bank chief thinks the job market is great? It's because the Fed's models are blind to three things. First blind spot, the average trap, in 2026. Total employment numbers have lost their sensitivity. We have a K-shaped split. The bottom of the K, hotels, restaurants, healthcare, is desperate for workers due to immigration policies and shortages. These low-wage hires make the headline numbers look pretty, masking the bleeding at the top of the K where the high-salary white-collar depression is happening. In the Fed's model, a lost $300,000 cloud architect job is mathematically equal to a gained $20 waiter job, but economically, they are miles apart. The loss of that high-tech job means the disappearance of a high mortgage, high consumption, and high tax revenue. 10 waiter jobs can't replace that multiplier effect. Second blind spot, the cliff in consumer confidence. While employment data lags, confidence leads. Just as the Fed called the economy solid, consumer confidence crashed to 84.5 in January, the lowest since May 2014. This collapse reveals that high-income families are losing faith. This is the direct evidence of the white-collar recession hitting consumption. When these people see colleagues vanish or realize AI is coming for their seat, they stop spending. They delay house purchases, cancel vacations, and lock their wallets. Powell admits sentiment is gloomy but insists spending is resilient. That is a dangerous lag. Spending habits change a quarter or two after confidence breaks. When the rich stop spending, the engine stalls, and by then, a rate cut is too late. Third blind spot, the cracks in consensus. The Fed isn't united. In a rare move, Governors Christopher Waller and Nestor voted against the pause, calling for an immediate 25 basis point cut. Waller, usually a hawk, flipping to demand a cut suggests someone inside the core circle sees the data is turning cold. This internal split undermines Powell's steady narrative. It suggests the decision to hold rates is driven by a fear of inflation ghosts, not future economic reality. History shows the Fed is always behind the curve. They drive looking at the rearview mirror of non-farm payrolls, while the windshield is full of layoff emails and crashing confidence. This mismatch between micro-reality and macro policy is setting up a violent correction. Mark a red danger zone on your calendar from now until the end of earnings season in March. Why March? Because that is the flashpoint where corporate efficiency purges, central bank politics, and financial market delivery crises will collide. Andy Jassy didn't pick late January by accident. It was a precise move for Wall Street. Finish the cuts before the annual report so the costs stay in the old year, and the new year shows a sexy story of optimized margins. Wall Street has changed its god. They don't worship revenue growth anymore. They worship the revenue per employee ratio. Amazon stock held steady or rose after the news. That is the feedback loop. Cut the humans, buy the silicon, and we give you a higher valuation. This will trigger a herd effect before March. Google, Microsoft, Salesforce, they will all follow suit. We are about to see a massive wave of layoffs in the name of embracing AI. And don't ignore the black swan at the Fed. Waller's dissenting vote is a ticking time bomb for the March meeting. The market is pricing in a pause, but if any job data takes a dive before March, Waller looks like a prophet, and the Fed goes from calm to panic in a split second. That isn't just a rate cut. It's a crisis of confidence. Finally, the most lethal blow might come from a forgotten corner, the COMEX silver futures market. Physical silver is in shortage. The explosion point could be March, a major delivery month. COMEX has only about 110 million ounces of deliverable silver, but in January a non-delivery month requests for physical delivery hit over 40 million ounces. That is a 20-fold increase year over year. Someone, maybe Eastern industrial capital, maybe central banks distrusting the dollar, is using the futures market to drain physical metal. If this continues into March and demands break 80 million ounces, COMEX runs dry. If they declare force majeure or force cash settlement, the paper pricing system collapses. That is a liquidity tsunami that blows the roof off gold and silver prices and triggers a dollar crisis. So, in this chaotic time, how do you protect yourself? 3 suggestions. First, immediately strip away the middle-class consumption illusion. Do not buy the dip on Starbucks, Nike, or Lululemon. When the middle class is shrinking, these stocks are valuation traps. Second, follow the big tech capital expenditure. Amazon is firing people, but the money is moving, not disappearing. It's going into that $125 billion capex bucket. Follow it to NVIDIA chips, Vertiv cooling systems, and Ethernet connectors. Buy the shovel sellers. Third, hold hard assets. Gold and silver aren't speculations now, they are your seawall. If a liquidity shock hits in March, paper assets will swing wildly. Only physical assets owned by no one else's liability can get you through the fog. Spring 2026 won't be calm. Powell is on a podium in DC using rhetoric to maintain an illusion of stability, while Jassy sits in Seattle using cold algorithms to delete old-world employees. In the crack between these parallel universes, the only rule for survival is, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. When the central bankers start jumping ship, when tech giants swap blood for code, and when physical delivery squeezes the market, all signals point one way: the old balance is crumbling. I hope you are prepared before the shock hits in March, rather than realizing it's too late when the dust settles. This is the Iron Bull Finance. See the pattern before the crash.